Welcome back to English from A to Z. You are listening to The Deep Dive.
Hello, everyone.
So today we're hitting something I think almost every English learner bumps into. That moment.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
When you realize your vocabulary for describing people just stops. It stalls out after, the basics. Short, tall, thin, or fat.
Absolutely. And it's frustrating, isn't it? Because those words, they're not very precise.
Not at all. And sometimes, frankly, not very polite either.
Exactly. If you really want to step up your game, move beyond just getting by to, speaking with real competence.
Especially when describing people maybe in a professional setting or even just socially.
You absolutely need richer words and more specialized vocabulary.
Precisely. So our mission today, we've got these sources focusing purely on vocabulary for physical appearance.
Okay.
But we're not just going to read a list. We're zeroing in on a method designed for, deep learning, active practice.
Active Q&A practice, right, like the source material suggests.
Yes. We want to force recall. Force you to use these words now because that's how you really build fluency, make it stick.
And I think that's key. We're not just passively listening or memorizing lists here.
No.
The goal is immediate use. Thinking, forming sentences right away. Our sources really hammer this home. It bypasses that passive stage and helps lock these terms into your active conversational toolkit. Confidence comes from using it.
Okay, let's make it practical. Let's unpack this with our first group, Paul, Sean, and Tommy. And the big idea here seems to be about politeness and precision.
Right. Moving away from those blunt, maybe slightly awkward labels towards terms that are, safer and more descriptive.
So starting with Paul, we're immediately ditching the word thin.
Yeah, the source says use slim build. That's the term. It's specific.
And it means noticeably thinner than average, but in a standard polite way.
Exactly. It's precise without being stark. Then there's his hair.
Okay, what about it?
He has black hair, but the key phrase is receding hairline.
Ah, that's a good one. So what does that actually mean?
It means the hair is thinning, specifically at the front. Moving up the forehead, it implies he's starting to lose his hair.
Got it. Very specific. And he wears glasses.
Right, he wears glasses. The source also mentioned the word eyelashes.
Oh, really? That sounds a bit formal, maybe older.
It does. You almost always hear glasses in
Yeah.
everyday conversation, but it's interesting they included it. Good to know, I suppose.
And facial hair.
He has a mustache.
Yeah.
Important distinction.
Yeah.
That's hair only above the upper lip.
Okay. Slim build, receding hairline, glasses, mustache. And the source calls him average looking.
Mm-hmm. Just average looking. Now, let's contrast that with Sean. He's presented as, the middle ground.
The baseline.
Sort of. He has a medium build. He's the definition of average size, not slim, not heavy, just medium.
Okay, medium build. Straightforward. What about his face?
This is a really useful term. He's clean-shaven.
Meaning?
No facial hair at all. No beard, no mustache, not even stubble, really. Just completely smooth. It's efficient, right? One phrase covers it.
Very efficient. And his overall appearance?
The source uses good-looking or attractive. Basically, nice or pleasant to look at.
And it actually singles him out.
Yeah, it says of the three men, he's considered the most attractive.
Interesting. Okay, medium build, clean-shaven, good-looking. Now, Tommy. This is where the politeness factor really comes in, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is crucial. Instead of blunt words like heavy or, fat, which can be offensive.
Right, you need alternatives.
The polite, accepted term is large build. He's bigger than average, so you use large build.
Large build, okay.
And there's an even softer option the source mentions.
Which is?
On the larger side. It sounds a bit gentler, maybe more considerate.
On the larger side, I like that. That feels like a real upgrade in diplomatic English, going from something blunt to on the larger side.
It really is. It shows nuance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, his hair, Tommy is bald.
Simple enough. No hair on his head.
Correct. And facial hair. He has a beard.
Which covers the lower part of his face, chin, jawline.
Exactly. Chin, cheeks, jaw, that whole area.
Okay, so let's do that active practice now. Connect the dots. If I needed to quickly describe the facial hair situation for all three, using only these new terms, how would that sound?
Wait, you'd say, Tommy has a beard and is bald. Paul has a mustache and, remember, a receding hairline.
Okay.
And Sean, he's completely clean-shaven. See how much clearer that is?
Yeah, it paints a distinct picture instantly. Much better than just saying they have facial hair or something vague. But what about the builds? That seems critical for objective description.
Definitely.
Which one establishes that baseline average size?
That would be Sean. With the medium build, he's our reference point.
Okay, so relative to Sean.
Paul is slimmer, so he has a slim build. And Tommy is bigger, so he has a large build, or he's on the larger side.
Perfect. We've got the polite spectrum for build. Slim, medium, large. Got it.
Now let's tackle something maybe a bit trickier. Describing hair texture. We need different words here.
All right, let's bring in the next group. Rose, Jill, and Wendy. Starting with Rose. She seems to be our baseline again, right? Like Sean was for the men.
Yeah, pretty much. The sources say she has average height and a medium build.
And it's worth noting, like you said with Sean, in casual chat, people might use average and medium almost interchangeably for general size, right?
Often, yes, for height and build together. But the real new vocabulary here is her hair texture.
What's the term?
She has wavy brown hair.
Wavy.
Okay, define wavy. How is it different from, say, curly or straight?
Good question. Wavy is sort of the middle ground. Think soft S-shaped curves, like gentle waves in water, maybe. It's not straight, but it doesn't form tight circles like curls do.
Got it. Soft S shapes. Wavy. Does she have any other distinguishing features?
Yes, she has a birthmark on her face.
A birthmark. So that's a mark or a spot she was literally born with.
Exactly. Congenital.
Okay. Rose. Average height, medium build, wavy brown hair, birthmark on her face. Now, Jill provides a contrast.
A sharp contrast, yes. Different terms needed. First, her build. She has a small build. Meaning noticeably shorter and smaller overall than average?
Correct. Small build. And her hair texture is the complete opposite of Rose's waves.
So it must be.
Straight black hair. Completely straight. No curve, no wave, no curl.
Just straight. Easy enough? Anything else?
Yes, the source notes she has dark skin. So that gives us one end of the skin tone spectrum mentioned.
Okay. Small build, straight black hair, dark skin. That's Jill. Who's next?
Finally, Wendy. Let's start with her size. She's described as taller than average.
Okay. Taller. And her build.
Like Tommy, she has a large build. Or, using that softer phrase,
On the larger side.
exactly. Now, her hair introduces our third key texture word. She has curly blonde hair.
Curly. Okay, we really need to define this clearly now to separate it from wavy.
Right. If wavy is soft S shapes, curly hair makes much tighter shapes. Think small circles, defined spirals, almost like a spring.
Ah, like a spring. That's a good visual. Tightness and definite shape are key. Okay. And blonde.
Blonde just means that light yellow or golden hair color. Got it. Curly blonde hair. Does Wendy have unique markings too?
Yes, two types actually. First, she has freckles on her face.
Freckles. Those are different from birthmarks, Al.
Freckles are those little brown spots, often caused by sun exposure. Very common in people with lighter skin.
So birthmark born with it, freckles caused by sun.
That's the main distinction, yes. And interestingly, Wendy also has a birthmark.
Oh, where?
Not on her face like Rose, but on her arm.
Okay, so she has both features.
Yeah.
And her skin tone.
Wendy has light skin. In fact, the source specifically says she has the lightest skin of everyone described.
Ah, okay. So this is perfect for pulling it all together. Active Q&A time again. We have Jill, Rose, and Wendy. If I'm describing their hair textures, what are those three essential words?
You absolutely need straight, wavy, and curly.
And the quick difference.
Jill's is straight, no curve. Rose's is wavy, gentle S-curve. Wendy's is curly, tight, spring-like spirals. Nail those three, and you're describing texture accurately.
Excellent. Now, skin tone. The vocabulary we got was Jill has dark skin. Then both Rose and Wendy have light skin.
But wait, there was a nuance there, right?
Yes. The source defines light skin here, broadly, as basically any skin tone that isn't brown or dark. However, it specifically points out that Wendy has the lightest skin in the whole group. So even within light skin, there's a range.
Right. Good point. It shows that even these categories can have variations. Okay, markings. Let's differentiate again, based on origin. Birthmark versus freckles.
Super important distinction. A birthmark is congenital, you're born with it, like the one on Rose's face or Wendy's arm.
Okay.
Freckles, on the other hand, are generally caused by an environmental factor, the sun,
Yeah.
like the ones on Wendy's face.
Got it. 1 innate, 1 acquired. So practice question for you, the listener, but we'll answer it now based on the sources. Which woman has the tightest hair texture, the darkest skin, and is smaller than average?
Okay, let's see. Tightest hair is curly. No, wait, that's Wendy. Darkest skin, that's
Yeah.
Jill. Smallest build,
Mm.
also Jill. Straight hair, yes,
Mhm.
so it's Jill. Small build, straight black hair, and dark skin.
Perfect. Being able to pull those pieces together quickly, that shows you're mastering the vocabulary.
Exactly.
And one more, who has both a birthmark and freckles, forcing us to use both terms.
That would be Wendy. She has the freckles on her face and the birthmark on her arm.
Right. And as the source material kept saying, repetition, active recall, that's the key. You have to use these words to own them.
Couldn't agree more. Engaging actively is how you make them stick.
Okay, so I feel like this deep dive has really armed us, and you listening, with a much better objective descriptive toolkit. We've definitely moved past the basics.
For sure. We've got sophisticated, polite terms like slim build, medium build, large build. We understand the nuance of on the larger side.
We know what a receding hairline actually indicates. We can clearly distinguish straight, wavy, and curly hair.
And we know the difference between a permanent birthmark
Hmm.
and sun-induced freckles. It's all very concrete, fact-based language, objective stuff.
Yes, but I want to leave you, the listener, with something a bit more provocative to think about. A final thought to mull over. We spend all this time defining objective facts, right? Hair color, build, specific marks, things that just are.
Right, descriptive facts.
Yet remember how the source material also categorized Sean? It called him attractive or good-looking.
Ah, yes. And Paul and Tommy were described as average-looking.
Exactly. So we shifted, didn't we? From objective fact to something else.
To subjective opinion. Judgment, really.
Precisely. And that transition from objective description to subjective assessment is maybe one of the trickiest parts of using this language effectively in real life.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
Because you now have the tools, the vocabulary, to describe the factual realities, bald, medium build, freckles, whatever.
But the question is, how important is it for you as a speaker to consciously separate those objective terms from the highly subjective, opinion-based ones like attractive or average-looking when you describe someone?
Where does the objective description end and your or someone else's subjective opinion begin? And what responsibility does that put on you when you choose your words?
That's the deeper level, isn't it? Applying this toolkit thoughtfully. Something for you to consider as you start using this richer vocabulary out there in the real world.
Definitely food for thought.
So keep thinking, keep practicing actively, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.